Episode 50, 50, that's 50 conversations about pushing limits, burning excuses, and proving that no matter how hard life hits, you can hit back harder. And today we're celebrating with a guest who embodies resilience like no other. A story that lights the fuel inside you and makes you think, what if everything you thought about resilience was wrong? Imagine battling for your health for 13 years, misdiagnosed, mismanaged, and on the edge of giving up. Most people would break. Not this guy. He has rebuilt himself, not just his body, but his entire mindset. And today he's a Spartan athlete, proving that no matter how far you fall, you can rise even higher. So welcome back to Embers Rising. I'm Wendy J. Sitting across from me is my co-host, David Tucker, and today we are marking a major milestone, my friend, our 50th episode. That's 50 deep dives into the mindset, resilience, and building an unstoppable life, and we're just getting started. So today we are going to celebrate, and we've got a powerhouse guest named Kevin Brewer, a Navy veteran, intelligent expert, and now a Spartan athlete. Kevin's journey is one of grit, perseverance, and a radical transformation after over a decade of misdiagnosed health struggles that nearly took him out. He fought his way back, rebuilding his body, rewiring his mind, and proving that obstacles don't define you. Your skill set and responses to them do. So listeners, if you have ever felt stuck, if you are stuck, if life has knocked you down harder than you ever thought possible, stop the scroll right now. This episode is for you because no matter where you're at right now, you have more control over your health, your mindset, and your future more than you think.
Awesome. And I am so stoked for this episode. First of all, because it's a milestone for us hitting episode number 50. It seemed like we were never going to get going. And I think this episode is going to resonate because you just have to start, right? Like if there's something in your life that you want to do, you just have to start, and it's going to be a hot mess, and it's not going to look pretty in the beginning. In fact, we were scrambling around before this episode today trying to figure out, hey, we're having a guest. How are we going to make that happen? But I'm also excited for this episode because Kevin Brewer's story resonates so heavily with me and my health journey. And if you are listening to this episode right now and you are challenged in your life with being overweight, under energy, and just basically your health is not in a good place, like this is a good starting point for you to say, today I'm going to make my stand, and just start soaking it in, right? Because you got to start somewhere, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So before we jump into this and bring Kevin into the studio, Wendy, I know my fan club out there adores me, and they're just looking for, for some shout outs that mention Dave. Is there at least one?
Yes, there is. Okay, let's check it out. So listen, this is so funny because every time we line up the shout outs, they somehow synchronize with the episode and what we're doing. And I don't plan this, by the way, my friends, because you are our community. You guys are, coming into this with us. So I love this. So shout outs, here we go. We had a post that went out called "The Key to Changing Your Life Isn't More Knowledge, It's Execution. Action is where the real power lies." Doesn't that coincide with what we're talking about today?
Absolutely.
So Justin and Jess _ I've definitely learned so much by just trying things out, failing and adjusting as I go. Definitely better to just start. Hannah I Power says, let's say no to overthinking. Yeah, I love it. And then David, you had a conversation on one of our podcast reels talking about your comfort is costing you. How to change it. And Vishal Burari says, this is super powerful. Justin and Jess _ says, one of our goals this year is to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone just a bit. Now, I have to say, Justin and Jess, listen, you too, if you're not following these two adventure couples, they are pushing themselves all the time. So they don't even think they are, but they are constantly pushing themselves.
And how do we get them on the show?
I know.
Now that
we
we're
need
on a
to
roll
ask
here
these guys.
With guests, right?
We need to bring these guys on. And Robust Physical Therapy says, love this perspective, David. Growth starts when we change ourselves. Social with Glam says, this made me think very hard. And Samuel, I want to say Arafat Iman, maybe from LinkedIn, says, choose growth over comfort. Amazing. Thank you so much, my friends, for sharing that because, listen, engage with us. when you do, you never know where our stories can take us. And this is how this happened with this new guest, Kevin Brewer. So you just never know. So we're going to dive into this episode. Let's go. This is episode 50. Make it count. Let's dive in.
Kevin, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great.
Hey, Kevin, how's it going? It's so good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me on.
This is great. This is so great. I don't even know where to get started because your story is so incredible. And just looking at your Instagram handle and looking at your photos and looking at your YouTube, and I think it's for the listeners, and for yourself, it just feels unachievable what you've accomplished. And yeah, can you just tell us just a little bit about you before we get into your story?
Uh, yeah, so former Navy guy, came back from Afghanistan, started having lots of health issues. So for 13 years, I was undiagnosed and severely degrading as a human being. And eventually figured it out and got the right treatment and turned my life around. Now I'm doing a bunch of Spartan events and all this other kind of crazy stuff. So
Okay, you just glazed over like everything. That's like such a great elevator pitch. I'm just like, okay, wait a minute. So, okay, you were in the military for
yeah.
how many years?
So I was about just shy of 7 years, like 2 months shy of 7 years. So
Wow, that's a lot. Cool.
yep.
And
And
then
and do you think your health challenges came from the military? And is that something you want to talk about?
I don't mind talking about anything. Yes and no, a little bit. They put you in positions, kind of thing. You're riding subs and stuff. I did a lot of subs, so you kind of get yourself in positions where you're just like literally sitting down and then completely laying to your side, just finding a place to like lay down. So you put your body through these different things, training for Afghanistan. One of those guys, we had like 300-pound guy who's big dude, like 6'4", 300 pounds, and I had to pick him up and carry him fireman's carry, and do a bunch of marches with a bunch of rucksack, heavy rucksack, and you got all this gear on, everything. You got the battle rat, also you get your on top of the backpack and everything, you got your body armor and all that stuff too. So yeah, the conditions themselves like deteriorate you really really fast. And then on top of that, just the nutrition they give you, it's fuel and efficient, but it's not quality. So it over time breaks you down too, breaks your body down. They're also really good about giving you the worst medicine. And so it's just like, hey, just want to get you back in the fight, and then they don't really care about the long term. Not their business either, though. So not to like dog them, but
yeah.
Yeah, okay. But you don't feel like there was any chemical exposure or anything like that that may have contributed
oh
to...
yeah. Some of the sinus related issues, being in Afghanistan, though, like there's like a real big thing with the burn pits and everything. So things like that, where you're sitting around the burn pits constantly, it's like they burn everything. So you get exposure there. Lots of people who went over to Afghanistan, Iraq, have severe issues. I was also at in Kenya and down in Hawaii, and I was under the pineapple fields, and they found out years later there's lots of people who have neurologic issues from that because of the fertilizers or whatever getting into the groundwater and everything. So there are some possibilities that things like that did contribute to it. But
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. And any off limits sort of things or anything that's too personal you don't want to talk about? I don't know what might come up, but I don't want to
No,
things that are like, hey, out of bounds.
I don't really have a problem talking about anything. I'll talk about weird things. I'll talk about whatever you guys want to get into.
Okay, that's awesome.
I've talked to clients about their bathroom habits and stuff, and how to use that as a sign and symptom for things that are going wrong, and how I'd use it for myself, and on a podcast the other day. I was talking to a lady about menstrual cycles and how women have to train during there's like different phases on the menstrual cycle and everything, and their hormones spike differently. So I get into some conversations, and there's definitely not much that bothers me. So,
let's lead with pooping and menstrual cycles.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's amazing. So amazing.
I know I get really weird conversations, but hey, you know what? It all goes down to this is how you get healthy, right? Like it's a skill. So
let's get into the story, Dave, because this is so incredible, and I really want to start with this misdiagnosed health issue for 13 years. I mean, most people would have given up. Most people would have not even thought about fighting for for their life, I mean, how did you even discover that you had this health issue?
So when I got back from Afghanistan, on my way back from Afghanistan, I got really sick. I think it was a swine flu going around at that time. And something just took me out. I was in a real bad way. And I came back and, of course, passed around my family and everything, unintentionally, of course, but they got sick too, and it was really bad. So I was recovering from that. I had a hernia, ended up being two hernias, or like called hydrocele, which was basically, it's the same thing with tearing the lining, that something fills it. It's a hernia is if it's like your stomach or your guts are filling it, and hydrocele like if it's like a liquid. So I had two hydroceles that I needed fixed on top of each other. And then I had a massive sinus infection. So my whole left side was completely filled with infection on half of the right side. They saw an x-ray. They're like, hey, you see this on the left side? I was like, see all that white? I was like, yeah, like, that's supposed to be dark. I was like, oh, that's really bad. It's like entirely full. And I was on the way home. I couldn't breathe like at halftime. So I was like using those like the Sudafed nasal sprays, but I didn't know you're not supposed to use them all the time.
Forever.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like more than like once or twice a day. And I was doing it like every 10 minutes. So I basically gave myself like a heart attack on the plane ride home because I was like struggling so bad to breathe, and my heart rate just shot up. And I was like, what the heck is going on? It was like going crazy. So all that was going on. And then, so I got the surgery for the hernia. They got me on antibiotics for the sinus infection. But the antibiotics was like, I think it's like Cipro or something like that. Which I didn't know causes like tendon and ligament damage. Of course, you're in the early 20s. So I was like, okay, that's, indestructible, right? And I was born with psoriasis, and I didn't know it turned into psoriatic arthritis. I didn't even know that was a possibility. So also the ligament and tendon damage there too. So I was lifting weights after going through all this stuff, and I was in the gym one day lifting weights. And I was doing some kind of a row, whatever, like pulling up, and I felt some kind of pop up in this, in the neck, upper back, neck area. And I was like, I did the smart thing. I stopped lifting weights, but then I went and played basketball because that's the really smart thing to do when you injure yourself is to go play basketball. And so I did that. And then like that night I woke up, it just kept waking me up. My chest was like on fire. It's just like pain, and just my heart rate was like in and out going crazy. And I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. It just kept waking me up though. So I eventually went into the hospital thinking I had a heart attack. And they're like, no, nothing's going on. Your heart rate used to tachycardia, whatever. And from that point on, it just never stopped. It just kept going and kept getting worse. And then, so I had like chest pain. There was like tachycardia. Went down my arm, up my neck, all this stuff. And eventually just kept getting worse and worse. A lot of neurologic issues, whole body issues, so my facial numbness and tingling, partial paralysis, things like that. So I was like really bad off. So,
I mean, at that point, Kevin, where was your mind? Were you just like, this is, it's over? I mean, where are you? Take us to that moment. Like, where were you thinking?
Yeah, so that first several years, probably first year actually, I should say, was like really bad because I couldn't figure it out, and like my heart rate was just going crazy. I'd just be sitting there. I got hospitalized at one point because I'd just be sitting there, and my heart rate would get to like 160 just sitting down. I wasn't even moving, and it'd be just stuck. It would just, and I wasn't doing anything, just sitting there. I wasn't really panicking or anything, but my heart rate was just stuck. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And then they tried to blame it on PTSD because I just got back from Afghanistan. So of course I get, oh, it's PTSD. But I was like, well, you monitored me overnight. My heart rate was like over 120 while I was sleeping. I'm pretty sure I can't be anxious and asleep. Like, that's not how that works. So they just didn't want to help me, at the end of the day, because I couldn't figure it out. So I had to go around my doctors there, get to another hospital. It's still within the military, but I got to a different hospital. And thankfully I got to a cardiologist there in Belfour up here in the Virginia area. And there's this Army Lieutenant Colonel, I think. He was board certified cardiologist before he came in. He was getting out. He just was very disgruntled with the military, but he was really good at his job. And he gave me that tip. He just said, look, if you can push on it and recreate the pain, it's not your heart. If there's something else going on, it's like, I can't tell you what it is, but there's something else. So that got me through quite a bit. Just being able to so I'd be sitting there like the whole time, like pushing. I'm like, yeah, that hurts more, So I probably hurt myself more than anything, but it helped me kind of calm down a little bit from the panic of like, oh, my heart's exploding to I'm pushing on it. Like, God, that hurts even more. But I guess it's not my heart then, So, but yeah, it was a lot. That first year especially it was like straight anxiety the entire time. Like, I was just like, I was convinced my heart was exploding.
Where were you in your mindset? Were you just like, I'm going to still figure this out, or I'm going to continue on, or?
At that point, no, I was just trusting the doctors. I still believed in the medical system. I thought they were there for, to help me out. So I was really just focusing on them. It's like, they just kept telling me like, well, just stop doing things. It's like pretty much, and if I would just do anything physical, it would really set in. So they just kept saying, well, just take it easy, just take it easy. And I was like, I can't do anything less than I'm doing now. I'm like, oh, just sitting on my couch doing nothing now. Like just doing anything just bothered it. So I was like,
as you move along, it always feels like you're like it's just you, right? And then as things start to happen, all of a sudden there's this community of people, and you realize that it's way more common what's going on than just you.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's where I was. I was just trusting the system, and then as I could start to see more and more that some of them even seemed actively against me, like it was like, okay, I have to just keep going to the next person, finding the next person, finding a way to get to the next doctor. So I just kept trying that for the longest time.
And were you getting anywhere? Like one doctor leading to the next, or
A little bit, they kind of played off. Some of them were, there were, I'm not going to say all of them were terrible, right? There were some that were actively trying to help me, but they get to the point where they just didn't have any other ideas. So they would just, be like, okay, I don't really know what to, they just push me off. But at one point they thought it was like thoracic outlet syndrome. So they put me to see the vascular surgeon. One PA was like convinced it was something with my first rib. So he's like, oh, we're going to take out your first rib. So they sent me to like an orthopedic surgeon to get the consult to get a rib removed. And the doctor was like, I'm not taking a rib out. That's not what it is. So it's like all kinds of like really random, crazy things. I saw the first pain management doctor I saw. She was like 3 hours late to my appointment. Well, I think she was irritated that I stayed because I was after hours, and they're like, hey, if you're here, if you stay, we'll get you in. And I was like, okay. So it's like, it was an hour away for a VA appointment. I was like, I'm not going to drive another hour. I'm already here. Might as well just wait.
I'll bring my sleeping bag if I have to.
Exactly. She just basically blankly told me, like, she stopped me, interrupted me when I was trying to talk to her about everything that was going on. And she's like, well, what does that have to do with this? I was like, I don't know. Isn't that what we're here to figure out? She's like, I don't think it has anything to do with it. Let's move on. I was like, oh, okay. And then eventually she goes, well, it doesn't really seem to affect your life too much. So sometimes you just can't figure out what it is. You just got to live with it. And I was like, oh, well, that's helpful. It's like, I can't pick up my kids. I can't play sports anymore.
That's why they call it modern medicine,
right?
Oh,
the diagnosis is live with it. There had to be a point in time where you just said, if this is going to be, it's going to be up to me, and I'm going to have to take control of my health journey and figure it out. Like, these people are not going to figure it out for me. And I know that was part of like my journey when that happened. Do you have something similar?
Yeah, I think it's about 5 years in. I finally went. I said, I'm not going to go through the VA or military doctors anymore. I was out of the military by then, so I was like, let's go to the civilian side. And I said, hey, I kind of start feeling it in my back first, and then it radiates to the front. I was like, so I would like to get my back checked out. So I started that path. So I started going down there, and it was like getting some relief. I get into chiropractic and some pain injections and stuff. And for a little while that helped. But the problem with that was I had to go all the time, and it wasn't really solving the problem, but it gave me an idea that there was something there. So I started kind of just doing that for a while. And then eventually, as it got really bad and I got to a point where I couldn't get to work anymore, I was having daily panic attacks. And thankfully, I'd say that's kind of harsh a little bit, but COVID happened and I was able to stay home because right before that happened, like literally, I think it was like February before the March shutdowns, I went to my boss and I said, hey, I can't get to work anymore. Like by the time I get here, my body's in such disarray. I'm having massive panic attacks. I can't stay at work. Every single day I'm thinking about calling the ambulance, come pick me up. Like, and my body's just like completely shot. My mind shot, my heart shot, everything. So I was able then to stay home, and that gave me the ability to kind of like rest up a little bit. And then I was start digging into it. And, there's one day I was in my closet, and it's kind of like, to your point, or to answer your question, is I was just like having one of these things again. I was like, screw it, I'm just going to lay here and die. And I was like, God, I don't really do this. I'm not, I don't talk to you, don't pray, I don't do this stuff. I was like, but if you can help me get through this today, I'll figure this out. And that was kind of the breaking point where I was like, after that point, I was like, okay, well, I'm a trained Intel analyst. I lived through it, obviously. So I was like, I got to do this. So I was like, so I'm a trained Intel analyst. Like, I can look at two things and see if they're different. So I just started looking at my own MRIs and like looking online and just finding saying, hey, what looks normal quote unquote normal online compared to what I see in mine. And I just started asking questions on Reddit, looking on Facebook articles and stuff like that. Just found random stuff online and figured it out.
Did you land on a couple of leaders in the space that like really resonated with you and helped you figure things out? I know for me it was Dave Asbury, right? Like he was one of the first people that was a sort of a biohacker. And I'm like, this makes sense. And I sort of do what you do, right? I was in search engine optimization. I still am in search engine optimization. I'm like, there has to be someone that's figured this same sort of methodology out in terms of health. And that's what sort of led me to Dave Asbury. How about you?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that was a huge turnaround for me is why I got into this kind of coaching stuff was finding the mental performance space. So Brian Kane was the first guy I came across. I was coaching youth sports at the time too. So it kind of fit into the athlete part of it. But then as I started using it on myself, and I got into him, Jocko Willink, David Goggins, those guys, so I got really motivated on things I could do in the future, but also I was like, then I knew I had to figure it out. So I just started controlling what I control. I was 240 plus pounds at the time. I was wearing, I was like, I think I was getting ready to start wearing size 50 pants or something like that, 50 waist. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, so what I can control is I can control my diet. Let me get that under control first. Started there, lost a bunch of weight. And I said, all right, well, now I've taken away the excuse from doctors to say the weight's the problem. I've also dropped all my medications because now I'm eating cleaner and healthier, better. I don't need the medications. So I was like, okay, now I can say that's not the problem. So I also give me reasons to say, take away excuses from doctors, but it also then gave me the ability to drop all my medications, which is really helpful. So, but yeah, I just kind of found those guys. And then have you ever heard of the Heroic program, coaching program by chance?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I started doing that. Now going through the Heroic coaching program, I got my Heroic buddy, Eric Wasserman, started talking to me. I was doing the David Gundry program at the time, kind of working through that myself to kind of see how I liked it, modifying a little bit. Eric was telling me, he's like, hey, you should try the carnivore diet, just for a little bit, whatever. He does it he cycles through some stuff, but he does it I think a couple months a year. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I really liked it. And it lost a bunch of weight on that. And I just felt really good on it. And it solved a lot of my problems too. But for me, it was unsustainable too to do it long term. So I've kind of done a little bit of a mix now. I eat a lot of meat and fruit, basically. That's been pretty much all I do.
My gosh. Wow. That's just like, oh my gosh, Kevin. I'm just like, where do we even start? So when you hit rock bottom, what was I'm taking our listeners back to this picture of you laying on the floor in your closet. I'm like, and having this conversation. I mean, what's the belief that you have to keep going at this moment?
I don't know that I had one. I guess part of it was I always believed in myself. I always knew that it was something there, that there was something more than was just mental, right? And I'm not dismissing mental health, right? It's a component of it, but mental health, when something like this happens, is it takes what's already there. So that a pain may be like a 5, 6, 7, and it takes it to 12, right? So it doesn't create the pain necessarily, although it can link things that don't make sense eventually because your body just starts learning patterns that hey, if this pain happened, you'll stop doing this, and your brain's wired for survival. So it started linking things together that didn't make sense. But short of that, it wasn't the answer. So I always knew deep down there was something physical we could figure out. And if we could find that out, I could get back to health. I knew I was willing to do what it needed to take to get there. So I just needed to figure out what it was.
I mean, you're already super driven. So now you're going through these life altering challenges, and I'm thinking about the unconventional way that you've now going about it. What is a piece of advice that you could guide our listeners to go after their own challenges, that they're having? Because you're talking about stepping out of, something that's a routine for all of us, going to a regular doctor, what have you. And now you're digging into research yourself, outside of this very unconventional way, and digging into your mindset and digging now into motivation and relentless, drive.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear the answer to that, but I just want to layer a little bit on top of that, right? Because I think all of us have this common experience as we go through our health journey to try and figure things out. And we talk to other people and they are frozen, right? And they're frozen because they've tried all of these different things with Western medicine. And, so many people are like, well, that's just the way it is. But I think intuitively we all know like there is a next step, but we're frozen in fear. What is that one piece of advice? Like, what you would tell someone that's listening that has something going on with them and they've sort of come to the end of the Western medicine journey? Like, what do they do next, Kevin?
So I'd say first and foremost is not to knock Western medicine. There's a really good doctors out there, right? So don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of terrible ones out there too. And the thing is that they won't tell you because, inevitably they have a little bit of too much of an ego at times, is that they just may not know the answer, right? So like the first guy that diagnosed ALS, the only reason he diagnosed it is because his mom suffered from it, right? So he had no idea anything about it until his mom did. So then we did a bunch of research, right? So they just may not know what's going on with you. And if they don't know, they may not tell you that they don't know. So, and Western medicine is really good about acute things, right? So like you break your arm, something like that. They're really good about setting it, make sure you don't die from that, things like that. Like any kind of quick infection they can help you with. But these long-term kind of chronic issues, they're terrible at managing. They don't even understand them most of the time. A lot of the advice they give you is wrong. I was following the nutritional advice they give me, initially, things like that. And it made me significantly worse. So once I got away from, I don't say ignoring your doctor, I started ignoring my doctors though. And I started paying attention to more like the Eastern style, like kind of historically how people lived. And they said, hey, does this make sense? If I was just thrown in the wild, what would it look like? What would I naturally do? That's what my body wants. And I just went back to that. And that significantly helped my body to be able to calm down and then also calm my mind enough to where I could then wrap my head around the actual mental, stuff I had to take care of. And then as I got all of it kind of going together, then it just like, now I can really tell the difference between all that. So nutrition's a huge part. So start there. And oftentimes
it's
that means
not so easy to find nature in the grocery store these days.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, the less processing, so the more single ingredient foods you can have, the better, right? So once you get down to single ingredient foods or little, if you look at the ingredient list on something and it has more than like 5 or 6 ingredients, it's not really natural at that point. So learn to make it yourself, really.
What is the list? Give us the list of medications that the doctors recommended that you take before you went on this journey. And then I'd like to hear sort of a follow up to that. What are you actually taking that's not a supplement but a medication now?
I'm not taking any medications now. So I was on Motrin 800 milligrams a day for a long time. Then I switched over to naproxen. They had me on anti-anxiety medications for a while. They tried an antipsychotic medication or depression or whatever it was. It made me actually psychotic. And I was like, I just dropped that cold turkey. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then for a long term, I was on naproxen, methotrexate, hydroxychloroquine. I think there's one more.
I mean, these are really common drugs. I mean, everybody knows these. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Right when you have something wrong, they just out comes the prescription, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah, so it was all like rheumatologic drugs. So I was on the path where they were saying it was rheumatology. So the psoriatic arthritis, I thought it was that, and I had mixed connective tissue disorder. So I was on a bunch of drugs for that. And I started taking biologics, like the injections. That caused like a lung infection though. So I was like, I stopped that. And then I just switched my diet and I was like, I started feeling better. And I was like, my joints don't hurt anymore. So I just stopped taking the other medications. And slowly but surely, I was just able to just drop them all.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had that similar. I'll just share this real quickly. When I had my health scare, let's just put it that way. I'm sure I was dying. You're always sure you're dying when you go to the doctor, right? And the doctor, after some blood tests and all that came back, and he's got a big smile on his face. He's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. And then out comes the prescription pad. He's like, okay, you got high blood pressure. You got You're going to need to take a statin for your cholesterol. You're going to need to take something for your ED. Let's go with testosterone. You're going to have to take something for your anxiety. Don't worry about the fact that you're not diabetic yet. You're only pre-diabetic. We'll take care of that when that shows up. And I'm like,
oh my gosh,
I am dying, right? And it's so funny. On the way out of the doctor's office that day, there was a little pamphlet that was sitting on the waiting table in the waiting room, right? And for some reason, I grabbed it and carried it off with me. And it was, just one of like rat card, small pamphlets that talked about diet and exercise. And I eventually and very quickly found a holistic doctor, a sports med doctor. And, I asked him, do I need to take these things? And he said, probably. And I said, crap, and I said, there was a pause there. He said, I say probably, you don't really have to, but you're not willing to do the work, right? And that always stuck with me. I went, what do you do? What do you mean by that? What do you mean you're not willing to do the work?
You're too weak. You're too weak, David.
and it was true, right? Like he was actually giving me a dose of truth.
Yeah.
He said, what do you do for exercise? And I'm like, okay, I like 3 times a week get on one of those elliptical machines for 45 minutes. He's like, okay, hire a personal trainer so you can find out what exercise is, right? And then what do you do for diet? And he sort of gave me some guidelines. But after that, I was just up to me to figure it out. And I think you had me beat. I was at 220. I think I was looking for size 40 pants, right? And it took me 3 years. Now tell us your journey, weight loss. I see that you had an amazing turnaround in like 15 months.
Yeah, so I dropped quite a bit of weight just from doing portion control and then getting the sugar cravings under control. So, I just started one time a day. So like the place I worked at the time, there was like cookies, cake, candy all the time, right? Or donuts, like constantly.
Oh, I love that stuff.
Yeah. So I would constantly just grab it. So eventually I just thought, okay, part of the journey was, okay, well, just one time a day I'm going to walk by, say no. It was literally just one time a day I'd say no. And then the rest of the time, if I said, well, I want to do it, I just grab some. When one time a day became easy, I just started doing 2 times a day and then eventually, just kept compounding it. So that was the starting with my kind of the sugar craving. And then eventually I got to the point where I could just control, I guess, if I want it, I will have it. If I don't, I don't. The cravings weren't there anymore. And then I just started portion control. Okay, I can just start eating a little bit less. And not to a point where I was starving, but this lady at work that I used to work with, she kind of said something like, you got to change your relationship with food. And that kind of really stuck with me. So I ended up kind of down a path that way. And I found this Japanese, I think it was from Okinawa method, where they just said, hey, we really got to pay attention to when you're no longer hungry, when you're no longer hungry, not when you're full. So I started paying attention to that and going like, oh man, it's just significantly earlier in the meal that I'm just like, I start to get to the sensation where I'm like, I know I could finish this plate, but I don't really want to. I'm not really hungry, but I'm just so used to finishing my plate. So I just started that, and that helped drop me quite a bit. So I got me from 240 to I think 215. Then I started doing intermittent fasting, which then...
Did you ever go through the process of measuring your food, weighing it out?
Not until much later. I do now, but that's not how I lost the weight. No, it's just kind of like it was a sensation feeling thing. And then I started the intermittent fasting, which just kind of like limits your eating window, but it also then lowers your caloric intake because you start, just don't eat as much. It's harder to eat within that window, that many calories. And I never really felt bad. I never starved, nothing like that. And I had GERD and everything at the time, so I was already like eating well before bedtime. So it was really just a matter of like pushing my breakfast a little bit, like an hour or two. So I was like, oh, that's not really that bad. So that lost me, I think, got me down to like 190. Then I got into the plant paradox method with Stephen Gundry. I started doing that, dropped the nightshades, things like that, which significantly helped my psoriasis. So then I realized like, hey, that's when I started realizing what I'm eating is more important than how much, things like that. So I really started paying attention at that point, and I got down to, I think it was like 170 or something like that. And then I got into the carnivore diet and I dropped down to 153. And now I'm back up to like 175, but that's intentional. I've been, lifting and doing things like trying to get, strength training. So I've built a lot of muscle back on that. So But yeah, I got down to 153 at one point. Just to, I couldn't. That was the time I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I was literally just sitting on the couch. I couldn't. I was probably not even getting more 2,000 steps a day, and I couldn't work out. So it was all diet. I never starved myself. I was never hungry. Just paid attention to what my body needed and when it needed it.
So, like, that's so hard. I mean, it's so hard to do. You had shared a story when we originally had our first connection call together, and I still have it in my mind, Kevin. You shared with me that you were sitting on the sofa and you had to reach over to get that remote for your TV, and like if you did, it would have like done something in the back of your neck. And I still think of that story today. You know, can you share a little bit about that at that moment?
Yeah. So the diagnosis I ended up getting, what I ended up having was cervical instability. So cranial cervical instability (CCI), which basically the ligaments holding the skull onto the neck were loose. So every time I'd move my neck, I was effectively uh, decapitating myself really internally, um, crushing the brainstem, like crushing the spinal cord, things like that. Which is why the MRIs never showed it, because it's a movement based thing. Not when you're laying steady, it's in alignment, but when you start to move and go, think that moves too much. So that was one of the biggest problems there. Not knowing that, obviously, I was moving a lot. I would look up and I was effectively brain crushing my brainstem, which was what caused the paralysis, things like that. And like then I would be paralyzed for a little while, and then like 12 out of 10 pain, my whole body pain, like it was just out of control. So yeah, if I turn to the right, do like 3, 4 times in a row, like quickly, for the next week, I'd be like have like flu-like symptoms, like this, like a bunch of random things like that. Whereas like basically it was
How do you get that? I mean, how did that come on?
so those were the kind of the progressions. I could just slowly, everything, year after year, the more I was doing things, I was, coaching baseball and softball, which is a bunch of rotational stuff. So that was probably the worst thing possible I could have done for my body. So I just continuously broke it down. And every year, then I was having more and more nerve issues and kind of different things. So it just like, it was kind of slow onset, I guess. Slow enough that I didn't really pay much attention to it. I just kept, just throwing band-aids on a gunshot wound, right? So I was like, uh, I was using ice, I was using heat, I was using the stem thing, TENS units or whatever. I had those all the time, constantly. I drive to work with them, things like that. Uh, yeah, it was that. So I just was just kind of masking the symptoms, just trying to live and do things because, as I was trying to figure it out myself, trying to go through doctors, things like that. I was like, I still have to live though. All right, I still have to do these things. I still have these obligations and stuff. So
Yeah. And you have a family.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
wife and 2 kids.
And how old are the kids?
Uh, Sophomore in college and senior in high school.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was like
So
trying to
And
think of that word. I was
how
like,
is
what is that word? Second year.
yeah.
how is your relationship with food change the way they think about it, or has it, right? And we see that with our own family. They're like, oh, you're so lucky, you've got such good genetics. They're like, you ought to come over at 5 o'clock in the morning and see us work out. It's not genetics.
Yeah.
How is your family receiving that, and have they changed?
Uh, no, that's I eat completely different from my family. Yeah. So my wife's done she's altering a lot of stuff for herself too, but she's a little bit slower mover than she also didn't have the reasons to change as much as I did. Obviously, like, I have a really strong reason to why I need to change. So for me, it's non-negotiable, right? So I was very quickly adapted to that. I think a lot of people too have the social anxiety of like not wanting to feel weird when they go out to places, so they'll just eat things that they know that's going to hurt them. And I'm like, well, I had no problem with that. I was like, no, your insecurities aren't going to make me feel bad for the rest of the week. Like I don't really want my elbow, my hip to like pop out constantly and feel like it's exploding because I don't want to feel weird sitting next to you while you're eating, right? So I would just tell people, I just go out and say, hey, I'm here for the social interaction because I really enjoy your company. I don't really care what you eat. I'm not going to judge you, but I'm also probably not going to eat. Or if I do, it'll be like one thing off here. When I'd go back and visit my family or whatever in Illinois, when we found out my dad had cancer a couple years ago, I flew back and I would just buy my own food and just say, hey, you guys can eat whatever you want. Just let me borrow the stove for a little bit because I'm again here for the social interaction to support my dad and see you guys. But I'm going to eat the way I'm going to eat. You guys eat the way you're going to eat. And I just really just did my own thing, and just I never made it an issue because I just asked for permission if they said no, or they never said no, but if they would, I just wouldn't have eaten. I was metabolically, I was like flexible enough where like if I can just skip meals if I want to.
That's so powerful to take control of like your own habits, like what you know makes you feel good and not worry about everybody else. But also actually tell everyone, like, just let them know, like, hey, I'm doing my food differently at this gathering, this event, whatever, and you do you, and we're good. And you still get to enjoy your social environment, with everybody. And then people don't feel uncomfortable because you've already openly shared that, with them.
Yeah, no, they don't have to ask the question. It's like sometimes they feel weird asking the question, so then it all becomes like tension because like they want to ask, but they don't, want to feel act weird or rude or whatever. And then you're thinking the same thing, like I don't want to be rude. So like sometimes people just give in. I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna come out and say like, no, I'm not gonna eat this. I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna go hang out. I just got really comfortable saying that, and after a while, I just figured out that people actually really enjoyed that anyway.
It takes a while. It's funny how much guilt is driven around food, right? And how it drives people's and how they replace their emotional states and emotional instabilities with food and alcohol, right? So I mean, we have to celebrate, so we got to eat. And I'm unhappy, so I got to eat. And I'm bored, and I got to eat. And it's lunchtime, so I got to eat. It's a weird dynamic. And once you start to own that and not care what everybody else thinks, you end up being really able to take control of your own health because man, what we put in ourselves is is a huge part of it. And we're at that weird place, all of us sort of in life right now, where I'm starting to see the results of unhealthy lifestyle, and we've got people that are dying are getting cancer, right? We're at that age. And, my dad's there right now. He's 92. I doubt he'll see 2026. And mentally, he's still, he's still pretty good, but he just never put in the work and it's showing, right? He broke his hip just sitting down, and so it's a weird time, right? And people don't want to really buy into it until it's life threatening. And I think when you're in your 70s and 80s, I don't want to say it's too late because it's never too late, but effectively it is.
Dave, I want to get to Kevin's Spartan stories, and I know everybody listening definitely wants to hear becoming a Spartan athlete. But before we do that, I want to talk. I have some questions I wrote down, Kevin, because I think these are important to have you answer these for us, so that we know how we can help shift ourselves. I mean, you've completely transformed your body and your mind. That's like so unheard of. I mean, it's like one or the other. It's like it happened together. What is the biggest lie people believe about making a comeback like this?
That they're not capable.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. I had so many doctors tell me I'd never get better. That was it's just like I just had to live with it. You know what I mean? So like I just had so many people, almost everybody really was against me, saying like it's just never going to happen. And as I started to come back, even like people, would constantly just tell me, um, "You're going to overdo it, or you're going to hurt yourself." Right? They just almost try to talk me out of it. But a lot of times it's their own insecurities that's stopping you. So that's really for me was the biggest thing, was just remembering. I think that really is what holds most people back, is because they truly believe other people's opinions, that you're not capable. But it's like, nah, you just have to believe in yourself so much that use their opinions to help potentially guide some future decisions, in terms of like if they're the product or the consumers. But if they're not, then you're the consumer of your own body, right? Like, so you make decisions ultimately. It's your opinion that matters. So if you really believe there's something in there and you can do it, then then show the world.
How do you reprogram your mind when you wake up feeling stuck or defeated today? What what are you going through? If you're stuck and defeated now, like what's the
What's
mindset
the
switch?
self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Where does the motivation?
Yeah. Um, Actually, this book right here, I have a Mastery by George Leonard. This is a really good one to read for stuff like that.
Nice.
Nice.
Um, he talks about plateaus in there a lot. And so if I feel stuck, I'm always like, oh, am I at a plateau? And when you're stuck in a plateau, it's because there's some basic level you're either not doing, or there's just like your body's still catching up, right? So I just get used to going, okay, at that moment, just go back to the basics. What can I do to make sure to stay functionally sound and go back to the most basic things? And I just stay in that. And I never really feel like I'm never going to progress, because I just know that, hey, I'm at that plateau. So as long as I continue to make sure the basic levels are taken care of, eventually I'll get to that next level. And sometimes you just have to allow your body to catch up, or your mind, whatever it is, to catch up to whatever that next step is, because maybe you've grown faster than it, right? So really good example of this actually is a lot of people have like get tendon or ligament or joint damage, right? It's because your muscles grow faster than your connective tissue. So if you progress through too much weight too fast, your connective tissue doesn't catch up. So therefore you damage your joints. So you snap something, right? So sometimes going down in weight and letting your connective tissue build up stronger will allow you to grow faster in terms of weightlifting, things like that. It's the same concept with everything, right? So it's your mind you may have gained too much information too fast. So you have to let it catch up to process it properly, right? Um, for instance, a lot of my diet and exercise stuff, right, I was going through, I was really hardcore, like, you have to do the carnivore. Everybody should do the carnivore. And then I realized, like, nah, everybody should, right? So I had to catch up to the fact that, like, hey, this new knowledge I gained wasn't the end all be all. I had to let the logical part of it catch up to understand how to utilize it properly for different people.
I just want to say that thing about you said about muscle and connective tissue is so true, because I have torn the belly of my hamstring, so the right in the middle of the hamstring, it non-repairable, and I tore it cycling. I'm an athlete, and
Ouch.
I went to go do a PRP shot to help stimulate that blood flow and healing. However, I did exactly what you said. I was building muscle, weightlifting. However, that connective tissue was not coming along with it. So I had to downsize the amount of weight and lower the weight and do the reps. And slowly, after a couple of years, and it has taken a couple of years, it has now rejoined. It's like, okay, it's coming along. It's like, okay, I'm on board with it. But it does take longer than you think.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
that is true.
Right now I'm moving into the second year of my running journey, and I am just starting to feel like my tendons, ligaments, all those sorts of things are starting to be able to withstand the pounding and the
Yeah.
work, right? And so much of it, you just want to go faster, farther,
Yeah.
and you just can't, right? Because you're bound for an injury, and I think running is one of the slowest sports that you can grow
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah, it really
Um,
is.
especially especially I love the gym. I love lifting weights, and so my body has the muscle on it. And you're like, well, I should be able to do this better than I am. And it's not easy too, because I have to try and keep up with Wendy, who is way faster. So, hey, what inspired
Well,
you to take on the Spartan challenge?
Some of it was just like the whole inspiration from David Goggins along my way, right? So, and I think I come across a Spartan at around that time where I was like going through that phase. But the heroic program, one of their things to get the coaching certification, they want you to do something like a Spartan or an obstacle race kind of thing, or whatever you can that involves a community and obstacles, right? So in December 22, I think it was, I was going to do that with them and out in LA. And this is before I really understood the mind body connection. And I saw some bad news from a medical report that I had that and my body just freaked out. It just went on overdrive and just like started having a bunch of pain in my hip and everything. And my heart rate was going all crazy and I couldn't get into controls. I took a Vicodin trying to get the pain down. I was on ice and heat and stim. And I was like, calm down. I just want to get to the finish or starting line. I just couldn't do it. So at that point, I was like, no, I'm gonna get it. So I got I did stem cell injections, is what I got in my neck to help myself heal. I got another stem cell injection. I think it was that February in January 23. And I was then said, all right, this year I'm going to do a Spartan race. So I'm going to complete that task. So I just started training at that point to do it, and started slowly, doing little things here and there. Got a physical therapist, comes to my house every day, or not every day, sorry, once a week. Um, and just started working to build towards that. So I did my first Spartan race in September of 23. And then after that, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do more of these.
That's awesome. I mean, talk about avoiding discomfort. I mean, a Spartan's already uncomfortable, but like you're leaning into it like, let's go. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, how can someone embracing a discomfort grow and go that direction? It doesn't have to be a Spartan, but like actually make some movement.
Start laughably small. And I'm not. So when I first started, because I could barely go from the couch to the fridge. So my first target was 200 meters. I was just walking 200 meters, and it would take me about an hour. My wife would go with me. There was like a guardrail and everything from the by the road, and I would stop and take breaks. I was in so much pain and disarray, but she would just troop through with me, and just started there. As that became easier, not easy, but easier, then we'd add a little bit distance, kept going. Then eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, let me start with one. I want to be able to do push-ups. So I started doing one push-up a day, literally just one push-up. That's it. And then when that became easier, I started doing two, right? And just kept adding. And then I started going, well, I want to be able to do pull-ups. So I just got a pull-up bar and I started just hanging. I couldn't even do a pull-up. I was just hanging. So I just hang for like 10 seconds, whatever it was. And then started adding, and eventually I could do one pull up, and now I'm doing all kind of crazy stuff. But I just like
Push-ups,
laughably small.
push-ups every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's become my daily too.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was just laughing when you were talking about pull-ups because when I started back in my health journey, got from Amazon one of those pull-up bars that you put in the doorway. I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's why I had it. Yeah.
pull-ups are the best exercise.
Yep.
And, so it arrives and I put it together and put it up in the doorway. And I'm thinking, how many pull-ups could I do in high school? Like, was it 14 or 15? All right. And so I jump on the bar, do my one pull-up that caused a back injury that lasted 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that was that, right? Like I'm like, I think I'm going to need to change my approach to pull-ups.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I actually couldn't do pull ups in high school or even through high school. I wasn't able to do them. But now I'm doing I can do 100 a day or whatever. So
That's crazy. That's so inspiring, Kevin. I'm thinking about your setbacks, your failures, and also your insights. I mean, what is the best thing that's ever happened to you?
I'm really weird about this stuff in terms of I don't really have favorites or best and all that. Because I know everything's a collective. So I am who I am today because of everything that happened to me. I don't have any regrets. There's things that I didn't necessarily enjoy about my life. There's things that were, people will say good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter because they all make me. And if I change any of them, I change all of it, right? Like I can't be where I am now if I didn't go through all that stuff. So I can't say any of it was good or bad. It was just was. Right. So I don't really think of like what was the best thing that happened to me because I couldn't point one thing. I mean, they all changed me in significant ways. So it's hard to really point out to what was the best thing.
So if somebody's spiraling right now and they're listening to this, what's the first thing that they should do to try to gain control of themselves?
So I like to when I coach people, I start with awareness. So I have this a traffic light system that I got from Brian Kane, who I think took it from Ken Revisa. It's red, yellow, green, right? So traffic lights. Green lights means you're completely in control of your emotions, everything, right? Like you do body language, focus, and self talk. What is your body language? What is your focus? What are you paying attention to? And what are you saying to yourself when you're completely in control? When it starts to slip, you start to lose a little bit of control. Then where's those lines to go to? And then when you're completely out of control, what are they? And it's pretty damning to see how quickly that can go when you really write it down.
It's powerful.
But you could never get it under control if you don't feel the slip. So if you just start with the awareness of just not even trying to stop it at first, just becoming aware of when it happens, what happens, like how your body starts to slump, whatever it is, uh, it's really powerful, right? Like it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. A couple weeks usually, you start to pay attention, and then you start to making adjustments from there. and then just slow, like, hey, I start feeling my slower shoulder slump. Let me go ahead and pull them back, right? That kind of flips you right out of there, right? Like, it's really hard to be confident and be big and be confident and then also be sad and angry, right? So like you can start to alter your things by just doing those things, but you have to be aware when it starts to slip first. So start with awareness.
So, what's your one non-negotiable habit you believe every person should adopt for a stronger body and mind?
Do something hard every single day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be hard in terms of like go lift 300 pounds, right? Like this, whatever is something that's difficult that you're telling yourself the entire time you don't want to do it. Just do it. Just do one thing a day. So it could be a cold shower. It could be whatever, like, sauna, any of those things, right? Like working out, do push up, whatever, like have a hard conversation, whatever it is, like something you're dreading the entire time. Just do one thing a day that's hard and complicated, because it'll eventually build you to where you're like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. And you can just, you'll have an easier time being able to do things that are difficult.
That's great.
Love it. Pure Goggins.
Yeah.
So Kevin, what's next for you? Like, how are you continuing to push your limits?
So this year I signed up for a couple of the age group divisions for Spartan. So I'm trying to see if I can get on the podium. I'm starting there, and I keep coming up. People keep trying to talk me into doing these half Ironmans or triathlons. So I'm thinking about doing one of those this year too.
Oh,
yeah, join me in that suffering. So
there's one up here by me actually. Was it the a sprint version? So it's like I think it's like a 5K run. I forget what the bike is, but it's like a third of whatever it is.
that's a different kind of pain.
great.
Yeah,
That's an all-out sort of pain, right?
I might try that one. The swim's the thing. I'm not a very strong swimmer right now. I just haven't put a lot of effort into it. I could probably get there. I just haven't never really been a swimmer before. So, having psoriasis, I've kind of avoided water because it dries me out and brings it out. So, yeah, I think that might be what I strive for next.
I have a few speed round questions. Go ahead, Wendy. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
you.
go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so we'll try and keep these short. What's your relationship with the scale?
I weigh myself every single day, without fail, every day. I know a lot of people have a problem with that. So for me, it tells you what your food's doing, right? If you see big swings in a day, it's nothing to do with whether you're gaining or losing weight. Truly, it's all about how your body's responding to something you're doing. So, for instance, when I do the Spartans, I gain about 10 pounds after that. It's not because I'm doing anything. It's just my body's just like all of a sudden just holding a bunch of things real quickly, going like, hey, what is this guy doing? Like it's crazy. And then over the next couple of days, it goes down, right? If I eat something that's kind of weird or like it's new, I'll know really fast if my body's retaining water or inflammation, because I'll be up a couple pounds literally within a day. Or if I'm drop a couple pounds in a day, I can know, hey, something might be coming up. I might want to do some things for my immune system or to boost it, things like that. So I weigh myself every single day. I don't really care what the number says. I just want to know if it's consistent or not. So, and then from that point, if I want to gain or lose weight, I know what to do. I know how to do that either way. But for me, it's just a matter of I need to know how my body's responding to whatever I'm doing.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to rethink my relationship with the scale because I threw mine out, and I purely go by how I look and feel. Right?
Yeah.
They're sort of my drivers. So, with that said, what other trackers are you using to track your health?
Yeah, it's really more just feel from that point. So I use the scale strictly because that'll tell me if my body's responding or reacting in a different way that I can't feel. But usually I can feel it too. Like usually when I know when I step on the scale, it's going to be up because something will be kind of hurting, like a joint will be or whatever, or I'll just feel kind of bloated or weird. So I usually know what's going to be up. So it's just kind of confirming that. So yeah,
but no other. Do you use any metabolic trackers or rings, 8 sleeps, those sorts of things?
No, I used to, but I think I got obsessed with it. Right. So I was like, I think it's controlling my life too much. It's like, it almost became an obsession. And it was almost like driving my mental state. So I kind of dropped them all.
That's funny. I feel like sometimes I have a really good night's sleep. I wake up, I feel great. And then I look at my sleep data. I'm like, only 6 hours. Oh,
yeah.
No. What is your relationship with alcohol?
Oh, I don't drink. So I grew up. My dad was alcoholic. So that was kind of that started, and so really kind of runs in the family. So I knew early on that I didn't want to do anything like that. I knew that I didn't want to be that my lifestyle. So I always thought I had an addictive personality. Now I understand what addiction really is. It's just a habits. So um, I don't really get addicted. I don't really have that problem anymore. But I just have never wanted to do it because of that. I just
I, I
I don't
I just
like
asked because
things.
it's so prevalent in society,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's everywhere.
I just personally don't like anything that alters my state of mind to where I might forget things. Like I really enjoy life. I really love the things I do. So if I have anything reason to try to forget that, like to me, it just doesn't make sense to like wake up the next day and go like, oh, I don't remember what I did yesterday. It's like that seems terrible. Like why would you do that?
for for sure.
But to each their own.
What
I
is
don't really judge, but whatever. That's just me personally. But
what is your advice to people on sleep?
I try to get 7 8 hours, and then of actual sleep, but roughly 30 to 60 minutes of time in bed too before, because you don't know how long it takes to go to sleep. So if you're trying to aim for 7 hours of sleep, try to be in bed for 8 hours, something like that. Um, I personally don't feel great when I get too little of sleep, especially I can do it for like a day or two, but more than that, I start to really break down really fast. Um, I think a lot of people think they can deal with less sleep because they're just used to feeling like crap. So they just don't understand how much a good night's sleep really helps them. Um, but yeah,
Well, fortunately, Wendy and I, we both prioritize sleep. But
yeah,
man, do our families not understand?
yeah,
They're like, "What do you mean? We'll just be up till 1 o'clock in the morning?" I'm like, no, we'll actually be in bed by 8. So,
yeah. No, I'm with you.
uh, last one. Anything you can share with us in your relationship with supplements? Do you do any supplementation that you feel has been super beneficial for your health journey?
Supplements, as I take some. I take vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, krill oil, or omega threes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
omegas. Okay.
Um, yeah. So, and I'll cycle off them for a couple days or a week or so, and then I'll get back on them. So, and I've added recently oregano oil too. It's supposed to be really good in terms of like immune. Yeah.
Like last one, I'll close it up. I'll land the plane here because I know Wendy's looking at the time, going, "We're running over." What is your relationship with pizza?
So it's actually funny you say that. I don't eat pizza anymore. I used to eat a lot. We used to have Fatty Friday. We call Fatty Fridays, and there's always pizza while I was going through my stuff. So I was controlled for all week except for Friday. We just have whatever we want. Um, I actually think that's there's a lot of limiting beliefs around food, and a lot of it comes from the way we're raised. And you were talking about celebrating and stuff like pizza, cake, all those different things are always put around celebration. So food is really enhanced, or your habits are really enhanced because of a strong emotion tied to it. And I think that's why so many people enjoy pizza so much, or think they enjoy pizza, because it's always been tied to parties or some kind of celebration. So once I kind of started realizing that, I kind of started pulling away from it. But I don't have a problem with people doing it. Like, especially if there's a lot of stuff on there, like I don't have a problem with like there's healthy fats in them, things like that. So it's not inevitably bad for you, but I just don't do it anymore mostly because I don't do gluten. But
Last one. Last one here. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. David Goggins walks into your room and says, "Grab your shit. We're going for a run." What do you say?
Let's go.
I, I mean, I'm gonna go, but he's probably gonna be carrying me home. So I'm gonna be dead. He's gonna definitely outdo me. But yeah, I'll go. I'm dumb like that, where I'll just I'll take the challenge and figure it out in the long run.
I think he'll try and outdo everybody.
Yeah, he'll definitely will.
For sure. Until like, even if he's going to end up in the hospital, he's going to keep going. If he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Wendy, when do you got here?
Well, this is Kevin's story, and I really want to just ask you, Kevin, what else can you share, or what is there another message or one message that you want to share with every listener to walk away with today?
Yeah, so I really believe, I say this all the time. People think I'm crazy, but I really think everybody has the ability to be great at something. You just really have to be curious and drive to. You may suck at it at first too, but I really do believe that everybody has greatness within them. They just have been told and beaten down all their life, telling them they can't. And I just don't. I don't believe that. I just think everybody has that ability, and you just have to find the motivation, the drive, and the skills. Really just comes down to building the skills, mental, physical, emotional, all those different things. Like it's all skill based. You just have to be willing to put the time in.
That's great. Kevin, where can our listeners find you or possibly work with you?
Yeah, the best place right now is Instagram at Coach Kevin Brewer. So my website's getting built right now. I was trying to do that myself, but it was just taking too long. I was terrible at it, so I just hired it out. So yeah, it's Instagram right now. DMs there, or LinkedIn too. I'm on LinkedIn at just Kevin Brewer on there. So
Okay, cool. We'll put those in the show notes as well, so it link over to you. And it sounds like, if you're someone out there that is looking for Kevin's help and movement, look him up because this guy has an incredible story. And Kevin, I did see on your Instagram a video that you posted of you doing pull-ups. It's pretty impressive from the weight that you've had and lost, and now you're doing pull-ups and you are like a ripped human being at this point. So it's
was that
very
the
impressive. Wow.
was that the one on the towels, the towel pull ups?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was great.
I found that from
That was
somebody
great.
else, and I was like, I gotta try this out. I was like,
Gary, I think I need to do more pull-ups, that's for sure.
there you go.
So, phew. I think I'm sweating from that episode. Amazing, like mind-blowing. And the thing is, we were only going to talk for about 30 or 45 minutes. And
It ran over.
at an hour, I felt like we were just starting to get going, right?
Yeah.
Like I felt like it was opening up. So in that episode, we actually sort of mastermind that we might actually do this on a more regular basis. I'm not announcing anything, but it could be there.
It was
So
very inspiring.
yeah, what great questions, Wendy. I really love what you brought to the table. When you have two guys trying to talk about their health journey, how did you hold back a little bit, like with your health journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it was all about Kevin's story, and I really wanted to bring him into the highlight with our listeners. And so it was incredible. I'm going to wrap this, though, because I know that, my friends, you've got things to do. Life is busy, and you want to move forward. So I just want to say thank you for being here. And if Kevin's story is really proof that no matter how far you fail, you can rise again, stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. I mean, resilience really isn't about never breaking. It's about choosing a skill set to rebuild yourself piece by piece, no matter how long it takes. And if today's episode lit something inside of you, do not ignore it. Take action. Your mind, your body, and your future are in your hands, literally like Kevin's took his. It's an incredible story, and I'm so inspired. So as always, we want to shout out and say, burn excuses, keep showing up. We are sending you a whole lot of aloha, my friends.